So good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to our Career Spotlight series featuring mental wellness professionals, hosted by the Career and Employment Resources Division at Wake Technical Community College. I am Sonia Hayes, Career Development Specialist, and co-hosting with me today is one of our awesome career development coaches, Miss Mia Kennedy. Today's Career Spotlight has been created in honor of World Mental Health Day. This day is observed worldwide on October 10th and raises awareness of mental health issues and the work that is being done to make sure that mental health care is a reality for all. So what better way to honor World Mental Health Day than to learn more about the different human services careers from four phenomenal professionals who support mental wellness in and around our community. Now, let's take a moment to get to know each of our panelists.
Yes, we have Miss Amanda Allen. Miss Allen has worked in the human service profession for 11 years. She currently works as one of the wellness counselors at Wake Technical Community College and PRN at Holly Hill Hospital as an admissions counselor. She has also worked as an intake coordinator at Haven House Services, which is a nonprofit in Wake County helping youth be safe, supported, and successful. Miss Allen grew up in Apex, North Carolina. She attended NC State University, where she earned both a bachelor's in criminology and a master's in clinical mental health counseling. Miss Allen has always known that she wanted to work in the helping field. Her passion grew for mental health counseling after working at a substance abuse treatment facility.
Next on our panel, we have Ms. Tu Washington. Ms. Washington is a senior consultant for Washington & Company, a consulting and professional development firm. Prior to becoming a consultant and trainer, she was the director and counselor of the Student Success Department at Wake Technical Community College, where she provided academic, career, and personal counseling to students. She also served as the Human Resources Manager for the College of Textile at North Carolina State University. She is a veteran of the United States Army. She received a master's in counselor education from North Carolina State University and a bachelor's in business administration from Campbell University. She is a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor and a national certified counselor. She loves working with people and is passionate in helping others achieve their goals.
Next, we have Dr. Lyndon Robinson. Dr. Robinson has over 25 years of experience providing counseling to individuals of diverse backgrounds. Currently, he is employed with North Carolina Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services. As a rehabilitation supervisor, he provides guidance and counseling to high school students, college students, and adults. He is also a licensed insurance agent, working as an exclusive agent with United Healthcare Medicare Solutions. Dr. Robinson earned his bachelor's in marketing and master's in rehabilitation counseling from South Carolina State University. He received his Doctor of Education in Organizational Leadership from Gardner-Webb University. He is a North Carolina licensed clinical mental health counselor and licensed clinical addiction specialist associate. He strives to promote a positive environment to stimulate minds and to encourage success.
And last but not least, we have Ms. Ashley Bailey. Ms. Bailey has over 10 years of experience providing counseling and mental health services in different capacities. She has worked with various populations, including children, adolescents, college students, adults, and families with behavioral and psychological disorders. She currently works as a student counselor at North Carolina Central University. She previously worked as a disability support services coordinator at Wake Technical Community College. Ms. Bailey completed a bachelor's in psychology from East Carolina University and a master's in mental health and rehabilitation counseling from North Carolina A&T State University. Ms. Bailey has always had a passion and interest in supporting individuals as they navigate through challenges, self-discovery, and healing. So now for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's hear from our awesome panelists. So since today is all about World Mental Health Day, we would like to hear from the panelists in sharing what does mental wellness mean. And Ms. Allen, we can start with you.
It's going to happen a lot, I think. So yeah, I mean, I think when talking about wellness in general, I think of taking a holistic approach. So thinking about like mind, body, spirit. So when I talk about like mental health, I'm thinking again about a holistic approach. So thinking about like how sleep affects your mood, eating right, exercising. Like we talk about practicing mindfulness to alleviate anxiety symptoms. So using this holistic approach to improve your overall well-being and function well to alleviate some of those daily stressors. So really looking at the overall big picture instead of like little small things.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So from our panelists, Ms. Bailey, would you like to go next?
Sure. And I would echo with what Miss Allen said. I think of mental wellness just as simply a state of being, a state of well-being. So our ability to be able to navigate through our day-to-day operations, in the good times as well as the bad times, just the ability to manage whatever is happening to us and around us.
Yes, that's so true. So true. Thank you. Ms. Washington, would you like to go next? Ms. Washington, will you unmute? There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I echo the two panelists' definitions of mental wellness as well. And so I would just like to add in, being able to have the self-awareness of knowing when you have that ability to deal with the day-to-day stress and challenges that comes to you, and also utilizing resources, skills, and support unit to help you deal with it. And then knowing when to ask for help when you're off balance. So those are things that I share to add on to the other wonderful definitions of mental health wellness. I think one of my clients one time tell me the definition is like taking care of myself so I can take care of others. So I have with that.
Yes, that is an amazing way to put that. Yes, thank you. And Dr. Robinson, would you share with us?
Certainly, I'll try to chime in after all of these great ideas. But in my view, mental wellness and the overall, from what the panelists also said, would be self-care. What plays into the realm of self-care would be you have to move your body, exercise. The body was not meant to just sit around and just to be stationary at all times. That helps with your mental and physical being. I would also say being social. COVID is probably not the best time that we can experiment in being very social because we've been so isolated. But find ways to socialize, and we have now, in this present day and time, the technology to be able to be social even if we're not physically in the presence of others. I would also say learning coping skills or strategies to help cope with any mental illness you may have. One may be eating healthy. I know we all can do that, especially myself. Sleeping, I think someone said that earlier, sleeping the right amounts of time, and finding ways to de-stress. And lastly, I would say finding that good support system. You need to have family, friends, or coworkers or other students who you can talk to. You know who's in your life who can provide good information. I at one time saw a book called having your personal boardroom. So you know who in your life can provide a good spiritual relationship with you, who can provide a good career information, et cetera, et cetera.
All righty. Thank you all for sharing what mental wellness means to you. Our next question is, what inspired you to pursue a career in human services? And we'll start with you, Dr. Robinson. What inspired you to pursue a career in human services?
My journey is probably not the norm. I kind of stumbled into human services. As the bio said, I majored in marketing, but when I was working down at South Carolina State University, I know I wanted to go back to school, and someone introduced rehabilitation counseling, and once I sat in there, the classes were going along fine, and I realized I wasn't going to get the big corporate job that I envisioned when I was in business school. So then I went on to start doing some group home jobs and realized that my job was to help people, to help change people's lives. And I've been doing that for a long time and haven't turned back.
Thank you. Awesome. Next, we'll go to Ms. Washington. What inspired you to pursue a career in human services?
I think I also share with Dr. Robinson about stumbling upon human services. I have a major in business administration, so I always knew that I love working with people. So just as long as I'm with people, I'll be fine. So I knew that my career got to be working with people, not data, not things. So those are things that I was looking for. And I was going on after the military. I got a job in human resources, thinking I can match the two up, business and deal with human personnel. So I'm working with people, not sales, not marketing. So I thought that was a good fit. But after 2 years, I really enjoy when people come into my office and tell me about their problem with their coworkers or their problem with their supervisor. And that was something that I was very intrigued with. And I would sit there and listen. But then I realized I'm not getting paid for that. And I was getting, behind in my data input of salaries, leave balances, hiring process. So I kind of feel like, you know what, I might need to change my career because I want to get paid to listen to people's problem and help them deal with stuff, and not trying to like sell them or not trying to tell them like, it's okay, nothing's going on, trying to look out for NC State or nothing like that. So I was like, I need to find a job where I can be truly there, get paid to listen to people and work on their issues and help them achieve their goals. So got into researching and looking at a career assessment. After I finished my bachelor, I took a career assessment, and of course it said you should be a counselor. And so I'm like, okay. I went to graduate school at NC State and majored in counseling, and I specialized in college student development services to provide counseling for college age students. So that's how I stumbled into the human services area. And now, after doing that for 12 years, I kind of went back a little bit to the business side where, I have a training, a consultation firm where I'm working on teaching, but I'm still working with people. So it's a ever evolving career path for me.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. All righty. Next, we'll go with Miss Bailey. What inspired you to pursue a career in human services?
So initially, I always was drawn to working with kids. And at one point, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician until I started to get into the higher level math and science courses in high school and realized that that probably was not the best route for me. So I actually had a mentor when I was in high school who was a therapist, and that was really my first introduction to the mental health field and what it meant to be a counselor. And from there, after having some conversations with her, I decided to try psychology as a major in undergrad, and I stuck with it ever since then. And I always knew that I wanted to be in a role where I was helping people or supporting people to some extent. And so that's what led me to this specific field.
All righty, thank you, thank you. And Miss Allen, what inspired you to pursue a career in human services?
Yeah, so like my bio said, I knew pretty much that I wanted to be in some type of helping field. I come from a very long line of teachers, but I knew like from helping doing tutoring and stuff like that, that was not my path. For some reason, I just do not have patience when it comes to teaching. But after college, I worked at an inpatient substance use facility, and I worked there for about 3 years and just surrounded by pain and sadness and a little bit of hope and laughter. And I really knew that I wanted to go back and pursue a career in counseling. And really from like my first class in grad school, I was like, this is where I need to be. This is what I want to do. And that's how I ended up in this field.
All righty, thank you.
Awesome. Well, those are definitely some inspiring stories. Just to hear that the path isn't always straight is something that I think we all have to remember. And in your stories, you all have all shared some of that to where it's okay if you don't know immediately in that moment, but you're still on the path pursuing what it is that's speaking to you and that the journey continues to evolve. So those are awesome. Thank you all for sharing those. Now, since you all are in the field of human services, I can't help but to want to know what are some qualities that you feel human services professionals should have? So, something that you think of just immediately, what qualities come to mind for human services professionals? And we'll just go back with starting with Ms. Allen, if you don't mind sharing your part.
Sure. So first off, I would say like a passion for helping others. Definitely patience, empathy. I find it helpful to have humor. I don't think you can get through your day without having humor. Compassion and understanding. I mean, off the top of my head, like those are some that I can think of.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey, will you share?
So Miss Allen mentioned everything that I would also say are very important, but certainly compassion, empathy, and I also think just the ability to listen to people without judgment is really critical as well.
That's true. Very, very crucial. Okay, Ms. Washington.
I will just add a few more to it. I will add self-awareness. I think that's really important to know yourself. So if you're coming in with stressor from outside, if you are dealing with, issues with something going on with you, so you need to know that. So therefore you can be a better, helpful assistant to your clients. So I think self-awareness was really good as well for yourself, so you can recognize when you're experiencing burnout or you're stressed. So those things I feel that's really important in this field. Definitely empathy. Then the other one I want to go into is communication skills. You need to have good communication skills, good active listening, and being able to put in the words to meet your client's needs at that time, and able to communicate with others as well. So I think that's important. Flexibility. in our field. We got to be flexible because we have clients coming from different walk of life, as well as dealing with, funding, being flexible with the resources, being flexible with how we our different treatment plan, how we engage with our clients. So being flexible is important to have. And I would also put in interpersonal skills. You've got to have some good interpersonal skills to be able to engage with your clients or your patients or your students, to really be all there for them, being able to build that rapport, build good relationships, not only to your clients, but also your coworkers, different resources on campus, different agencies, so you can help your clients better and for yourself as you work through this professional field. And I say last, because I'm going to leave some for Dr. Robinson. Last will be, I think, will be multicultural competency. I think that's really important because you will see so many different people. And of course, you're not going to be able to know their walks of life because that's so special. But if you expand that and try to learn from everybody and try to do your best as you can so you can widen your perspective on multicultural, that can be very helpful. And of course, if you don't know anything, you can be genuine with that and tell your clients and your patients that you just want to know more. So I think that's really important, especially nowadays. I'll end with that.
Thank you. And Dr. Robinson?
I'm supposed to follow that?
I think you can.
But I can just piggyback on, I've heard earlier, being an active listener. If you're dealing with, if you're interacting with people, and we are problem solvers, you must be able to listen so that you can, one, determine what the problem is and then try to help that person find a solution. I would also say organizing, prioritizing work. It's not just about talking to people. We are also dealing with a lot of paperwork. We have to meet deadlines. So especially if you're working with an agency, I'm in the government, so we have to meet deadlines, even though they always say it's all about the person, but yeah, okay. But sometimes it's that thing called a number they want to. And I would say lastly, you should have good decision-making skills, because as I said before, you are dealing with people. These are real lives you're messing with, and then you're trying to help them get to a better place in life. So you need to be able to have some foresight to be able to determine to be able to guide them to where they need to go.
Yes. Thank you guys for sharing. All those are definitely essential skills that we need in this profession. As every job has pros and cons, what is the biggest challenge of your job? And what is the most fulfilling part of your job? And we'll start with Miss Allen.
So I know there's probably things that I'm missing, but like one of the first things that came to my mind, thinking about like the biggest challenge is in this job that I have and in my previous job, you know, I may have a student or a client that comes in and I may not always hear the end of somebody's story. So I may have somebody come in and we will talk through like the problem that they have or, you know, an issue that they have, and they may follow up or they may not. And I used to do mental health assessments at my last job. So I would typically only see somebody for like that first appointment. So I would get their story, I would gather a ton of information from them. And then I may or may not hear what happens. And so that sometimes that is really tough. I might hear something like in treatment planning, or they may follow up, but a lot of times I would not hear like where that would go. On the flip side of that, one of the most fulfilling parts is to be able to make connections, like to be able to meet with somebody and know, like, okay, well, I've heard this amazing story. Like, they've humbled me in the fact that they were willing to open up and share so much information with me, and I was able to connect them to where they needed to go. And someone trusts me that much, to be able to share those intimate parts of their life. And that really is a fulfilling part of my job, that I can provide that safe space for them to do that. And I think that is such an amazing part of this job, to be able to sit down with somebody for half an hour and get to learn so much about their life, and to share that safe space with them.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Ms. Bailey, what are some pros and cons, and what are some challenges and most fulfilling part of your job?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest challenge for me is probably burnout. So just as I, am actively telling the individuals that I work with that self-care is so important, I have to make sure that I'm intentional about my own self-care. Working with people who are, just navigating through so many difficulties can be mentally exhausting, as well as physically, and it can have an impact on your own mental health. So what I have had to learn through this process is that I have to be really intentional and really consistent when it comes to my self-care, so that I don't get to the point where I'm burnt out in my profession. Um, but on the opposite end of that, something that is so fulfilling to me is just being able to meet an individual where they are, no matter, what they're going through, what they're having difficulty with, and being able to support them through whatever their journey is, and also watching the progress and the growth that happens over time in the space that you have with that specific individual. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Washington?
I agree with our panelists of the biggest challenge and the fulfillment of our job. I think I would just add in that one of the biggest challenge I would say is that not being able to help everyone, because I think sometimes you go in there and you're just really ready to do the treatment plan is really good, and you know what your clients need, but sometimes they're not ready. So I found out that was frustrating for me when I first started out in the career, where I want to make changes for them, and every week to hear their story again, and they're still not where they're supposed to be, was something that I got frustrated really fast. And I just have to realize that all of my clients are at different stages in their life, and sometimes they're ready to go and sometimes they're not, and that's okay. So I think that was one of the frustration I experienced at first. Then once I kind of got my perspective together, I know that sometimes our job is like basically planting seed. So you meet with one person and you may have one session, they never come back. And you're like, what happened? But then perhaps that session's certain things you say or certain things that you mention or reflect back with them, that they would carry that on, and maybe they'll grow. That seed will grow maybe 5 or 6 years down the road. So you just don't know what will happen, but just knowing that they took the effort to come and see you is a big step. And then, of course, on the flip side, like Ms. Allen, is that, being able to know that you made an impact, that connection, and be able to spend time with them, for them to share so much of themselves to us, it's an honor and a privilege. And to see that they are making progress to achieve their goals is just it's a wonderful feeling. And I think in a way we go into this human services field is to make an impact in society and in the world. So I feel that that's it's the rewarding part. I know we didn't come in for the money, but I'm sure, with helping people and seeing them grow and make some changes, it's what I enjoy being in this field for.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Robinson?
I would say the biggest challenge, especially when I was younger in the field, and especially as I transitioned into state government, was the lack of innovation. You come there, those big old ideas, and everybody look at you and say, "Nope, not gonna happen. Nope, not gonna happen." But then after a while, you after you stumble, you mature and learn how the process goes. Um, you still have that innovation in you, but you just know that you know sometimes organizations just don't have the ability to do what we want them to do. And I would say another thing would be not having those resources, as someone alluded to, the resources to be able to help everybody, even if you know that person has some good in them. Um, and we just can't help everybody, but having a lack of resources. One of the pros I would say working with vocational rehab, which is also state government, is stable employment. Um, I was telling someone a few years ago when all of the corporate jobs start going to China and wherever else is that as long as you can see and feel a person, you are more than likely have some employment someplace around here. So just dealing with people, um, you pretty much gonna have some stable employment. But one of the things that's most fulfilling for me is working with a person and seeing them gain or regain their independence in life, getting that footing. Everybody goes through different types of crises, but seeing that person get their life back together and you were a part of it. And I've also worked with some high school students, and watching that student go from having a lack of family support, a lack of financial support, and helping them go through the college enrollment process and maneuvering and finally graduating, becoming that first generation college student. Usually after that generations to come within that family could change. So I would think that's fulfilling for me.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. This next segment, we're just going to ask individual questions to our panelists. We'll start with Ms. Washington. As a business owner, what piece of advice would you give someone who aspired to have their own practice or consulting firm?
I would recommend that if you are looking into starting out on your own, that you just spend a lot of time planning before you start. You need to do a lot of research of the market, research of the locations, research of finance, talk to people. And learn about their setbacks and their success, and then gather the information and start making your plan. And so sometimes when you open a business, it's I think it won't be as successful if you go in as by luck, or let's see what's happened. Let's throw it out there and see what happens. So you definitely want to make sure you have everything planned out. Starting on your own it's so different, because when you're working with an organization for so long, like a state agency, like for myself at Wake Tech for 12 years, it's like every process is already in place. Everything is already set. So you go in, you know exactly what to do, but as you become your own entrepreneur or your own business owner, you have to create everything from scratch. And sometimes that's an area that I lack in. I just didn't realize there's so much that I have to do, from big decisions to small decisions. So one day you might be, in charge of marketing, in charge of finance, in charge of HR, in charge of, strategic planning. And then you will have to learn how to fix a toilet. You will have to learn how to, paint. You will have to learn how to do tech support now that you're the only one. And so there's just so much, but if you don't plan your day well, I think it could take up a lot of your times. And then again, time is such a valuable resource that has entrepreneur we need all that time to generate business and to make sure that we're on task. Oftentimes, I have a very easy job of trying to see the big picture. Like at the end of the year, I want X amount of clients. So that's easy for me to do. But the day-to-day, the weekly plan, the task and objective to get there is very murky. So if without having plan in place, I would, literally spend, a whole day watching DIY tutorial and didn't make my call with my clients during peak hours. And I was like, oh no, a whole day's gone. And as your own business person, you can't do that. Every hour counts. So I would say you've got to plan really well. And if you're not a good planner, you might want to get a business partner that is good at planning. That would be my best advice for someone who's wanting to start a business. A good plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this next question is for Dr. Robinson. In a time when awareness of equality and inclusiveness is so important, how do agencies such as the one you work for, Vocational Rehabilitation Services, ensure equity and inclusion within the workplace for those with various different abilities?
Well, we're working within state government. Governor Cooper, he actually signed an executive order. Well, I forgot what year it was, but it's called the Employment First for North Carolinians with Disabilities. So that executive order increases the opportunity for fair wages, employment, and careers for people with disabilities. So that's one step that helps provide equity and inclusion. Also, being October for us that work with disabilities is Indeem. We're celebrating Indeem. I just watched a workshop earlier this morning, and Indeem is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So right now we're celebrating people with disabilities and their pursuit of gaining employment. And just, I think maybe the past month or two, Vocational Rehab has created a committee or a council that's committed to the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that council or that committee is going to be put together so that they can create opportunities for employees to discuss issues related to equity and to develop impactful recommendations for change for persons with disabilities. So we have a long way to go, and I guess people wouldn't realize that we're celebrating 30 years, and you would think it should have been here much longer than that. But there's still discrimination going on, and we all have to just try harder to help persons with disabilities maneuver better in this society.
Yes, we do. We sure do. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Robinson. Our next question is for Ms. Bailey. What are some ways that you address the mental health stigma or shame?
Yeah, so I think it all starts with really just educating ourselves on mental health and what that means to us. And so we are still in a day and age where, there is some stigma that is still associated with mental health, even though it has gotten better over the years. But just, thinking about how we look at mental health, the thought and the way that we speak about mental health is so powerful. But what really is mental health? It's just a state of being, a state of well-being. So just as we have to take care of ourselves physically, medically, spiritually, and in other areas, it's the same thing as far as mental health is concerned. And so I think that if we just really start to look look at, how we can break down that meaning and really how simple the meaning is itself, we can really start to give more, positive thought to mental health and be more open to, having experiences with therapists, psychologists, or really even just doing what we need to do ourselves to take care of ourselves mentally and emotionally.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Which is actually a perfect response as a segue into the question for you, Ms. Allen. What are some resources that students, as well as us as professionals or anyone, can access for mental wellness support?
Sure. So for students, and talking about Wake Tech students, we do provide free counseling for students. Wellness counseling does. Elaine Rodriguez is our other counselor on campus. So we, on our website, wellness.waketech.edu, you can schedule an appointment, you can refer a student. We are also available for referrals, questions, consultation, anything like that. We also have resources for coping with COVID, resources for crisis, resources for self-help, and talking about just in general. There is a ton of information out there. There are great websites, there's great people to follow. Some probably not so great, but there are a lot of great people to follow out there just for self-help resources. And really, when talking about mental health, Miss Bailey, like it can just start with yourself. And if you feel like you are not able to function in your daily life, that's probably a sign that maybe take it to another level and talk with a therapist. But if you are in a school or at a university, there are therapists available, and that's a great place to go. If you are working somewhere, there are EAPs available, and that is a great option that you have. So there are places that are available for resources.
Yes, thank you. And that wasn't just to put the focus on Wake Tech, but that was a great opportunity to make sure that students are well aware of the services that are being provided and that are offered, so you're not alone, no matter what it is that you're facing. So thank you all for sharing that information. Now, this last question is actually the last question for our panelists today, and it is one that I want to make sure that we have a moment to just uplift and empower those who are thinking about going into this particular profession. So we're going to start with you, Ms. Washington. If you will share, what advice would you give an aspiring mental wellness professional?
You're muted, Ms. Washington.
There we go. I would recommend that for someone who's starting the field, that you will do a informational interview with a professionals that you want to inspire to be, like certain job title, like a director or a counselor. So you would like to set up like a 15 to 20 minutes with them and ask them some questions that only they can answer, where you cannot find textbooks. Sometimes that's the best way to learn, is from someone who's gone the path. So I would recommend that that for new people trying to get into the field, just really kind of learn from those that have been through the work, and they will find out some good strategy, how to get a job in the field, outlooks, trends of the field. And those are a really good opportunity to kind of get a very accurate now picture of the field. And then also the opportunity to network with professionals in the field, that you just took that 20 minutes of that person's time, you can establish that relationship and nurture it. So when you do finish with your school or the graduate school and you want to get your foot in the door, you can use that connection and say, I thank you for your time. I contact that person you recommend me to contact. I'm putting in my resume. Can you look it for me? So those are things that I think will be very beneficial before you get in the field or you want to get in the field, you might want to do that if you are thinking between either going to business or going to teaching or counseling, because there's so much. And sometimes, like some of us, we just stumble upon it. So you have to find your way. And another one I felt that I never got as a student, and I feel that it's really important for new professional when you're coming into a new field. I would recommend that you wait like 60 to 90 days to assess and evaluate your business culture or your office culture, because every culture is so different. So just sit back a little bit and kind of observe and see what they value. So if they value innovation, if they value creativity, if they value communication, then you know that that's something you can bring to the table. So you don't want just to bring, whatever you had before to your new office environment until you get a chance to kind of see what they value first. So then you won't be, I guess, cast as an outsider or different, or, oh, she's so special. So those are things that I would recommend that you do when you first try to get into a new field. And also another thing that you want to do is you don't want to bring how you work at your old job over. So you want to say, like, at NC State, this is how we do it. Because sometimes that's NC State. So that will be just a few advice that I think has new professional going to the field. Just take your time to observe your office culture and see first. And that's it.
Thank you. Dr. Robinson, will you mind sharing?
Sure. I'm just going to piggyback on this. I would say, with all of what you just heard, maybe go out with that professional that you did that informational interview with. Ask them if they could be a mentor to you, especially if you decide to enter that same profession that that person that you interview is in. That way, you can avoid a lot of the pitfalls that are out there. You can have a smooth transition and hopefully a great long career. And there's another thing that I thought about that I actually look at all the time, and of course it wasn't around when I was younger. There's a lot of information on YouTube. You can just type in the profession, the position, and you can actually listen and watch a person do the job, talk about the job, just like we're doing right now. So you have to be knowledgeable and resourceful and look at, everything you can to learn about whatever job you're trying to get into.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Bailey?
I agree with Ms. Washington and Dr. Robinson as far as just taking those opportunities to do informational interviews and network with people. And, if you can gain a mentor out of that informational interview, great. And even if not, just making sure that you keep in contact with people. So if it's ever a situation where you need to consult or network with them again down the line, they can remember who you are. I know that's one thing that was really beneficial for me that my parents kind of instilled in me, as far as once I make that connection, to keep in contact with that person, because you just never know how resourceful that specific, contact can be to you as you continue to progress in your field or whatever your future interests are going to be. And to echo off of Dr. Robinson as well, the beauty of technology in this day and age, where there is a wealth of information on the internet. And just like he said, you can literally go to YouTube and look at, a sample counseling session, or whatever it is that you might be interested in. So just learn and gather as much information that you possibly can, whether it's through research on the internet, whether it's, informational interviews, whether it's videos, just so that you can have as much knowledge as you possibly can, to help you basically figure out what it is you want to do career-wise.
Awesome. Thank you. And Ms. Allen?
Yeah, I agree with everyone so far. There are so many paths that you can take within this field. I mean, there's social work, counseling, psychology, marriage and family. I mean, there's just so many. So I say, like, within that research, looking at what education looks like, depending on if you have a school in mind that you want to go to, what the classes would look like, what your focus wants to be, if it's like doing advocacy or clinical or whatever that might be, looking at licensure and the cost and supervision, internship requirements, all of those things to see what the best fit for you is. Because a lot of these paths are going to have cost involved, and some things cost more than others, and some paths take more internship requirements or hours that you have to get. So kind of thinking through what all of those are. And I think finding those things out when you talk to people in the field, asking all of those questions, is a great idea.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. At this time, we will open it up to our audience if you have questions for our panelists.
And you can either type those questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask. Well, we're getting something coming in. Oh, I'm seeing no questions, but very informative. One thing I want to say, sometimes when there are no questions, that says that a wealth of information has been given. Well, I actually have a question for you all. So I saw this alphabet soup behind you all's name, all of these letters, as far as the licensed counselor and these things. So do you all mind sharing with us what those letters mean? And it's whomever wants to go, whichever one of our panelists would like to share.
I can go. So I am CRC and LCMHC. Sorry, I'm still getting used to saying that since they just recently changed our credential and added letters to it. But CRC is for Certified Rehabilitation Counselor, and the LCMHC is Licensed Clinical Mental Health Counselor. So with the specific degree that I did at North Carolina A&T University, my program specialized in mental health as well as rehabilitation counseling. And so the exam, the licensure exam that I had to take at the end of the program actually gave me 2 credentials. So of course I started off at the associate level with the, well, it was known as LPC at that point. And then I, got my clinical supervision and got my full licensure.
Awesome. Okay, that explains the alphabet soup there. Yes.
I just haven't changed mine over to the LCMHC yet because it's still that way on the website. I just have to change it.
I had to go on the website to see what the letters were. So, but I think what I I even have to write it down. LCAS A is a licensed clinical addiction specialist associate, and that's only if I want to pursue full licensure, I can just go through the process and get supervised in addictions or substance abuse. Um, and that's about it. I'm a former CRC, so I'm still pending a payment.
And Ms.
That's what I
Washington,
mean about talking about the cost of everything.
yes,
Exactly.
there are costs associated with these, as we know, most licensures are. And there's usually an exam that's a part of it, right?
Yes,
That's right.
which is more cost.
And if you pursue it, I advise to take the examination immediately after school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, great advice. Because it does get cold.
It does.
Ms. Washington, I noticed in yours there was also a supervisory component with yours. So do you mind sharing what that means?
You're muted, Miss Washington.
I guess it didn't like me to talk. I'm so happy that Miss Bailey helped me out and took the bite for that long credential that just recently changed. So it's hard. The only difference between that degree or that licensure with the S or supervision behind is that I have to take an extra class on learning how to supervise counselor in the field, so they can get their licensure. So I just did a little extra along the way.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. And we do have a question that actually has come through. So, in this COVID world, what are themes that have emerged in your worlds that may not have existed previously? And that can be from any of our panelists.
I can say what we're doing right now. I'm sure before COVID, you would be inviting us to come on the campus, and we'd be sitting all together at a table with an audience. But yes, this is one of the things that even though this technology has always been, well, I won't say it's been here for a while, I think COVID has rushed it into our lives where we're all finally getting comfortable with it, and I'm sure it's going to be here for a while now.
I can think of two things. One has been common, but not to this extent, and that's lack of connection, like loneliness. That has definitely increased, and then lack of motivation, and that's particularly with online schools. Just not feeling motivated, not wanting to do things, and there's definitely underlying causes for that, but those are really two themes that seem to come over and over again.
Would anyone else like to share?
I would agree with Miss Allen. I've definitely seen an increase in individuals that are just having difficulty with being able to connect with other people socially, especially if they've had issues with that prior to pandemic. And so, with everything going on, it makes it even that much harder for them. And so just really having to work with students and individuals and really getting creative in ways that we can still engage with each other and still, be intentional about making sure that we are not isolating at a time like this because of some of the, barriers and limitations that are in place due to the pandemic.
I'll just add in that I often sometimes see a little bit the flip side of it is that we're using technology now to learn so much. Now that we do have some of the free times that we're not in traffic, so we're able to learn different stuff that we've been putting on our to-do lists or books to read. So a lot of time it can be also a great time to stop everything and focus on ourselves, just because now we don't have anything else to do. But of course there are other cases where you got so much now work, and now you have to be a teacher as well, and along with everything. So I do see that there is positive and negative to this new things. But again, as one thing I was telling you all before, is that we have to be flexible and adapt and try to make the best out of everything.
Alrighty, thank
Yes,
you.
we have one more question that has come through. Thank you all. Let's see this next question. What does self-care look like for wellness professionals? What are your personal techniques and tips? And it can be whomever wants to share.
So I can speak on that. So self-care, for me just looks like whatever it is that I need to pour into myself and to uplift myself and help me feel good. And so some of my go-to things that I do are bubble baths with Epsom salt. I know that might sound silly, but they are amazing. They help me to be able to relax physically, which also helps me to just be able to take a load off mentally as well. Other things that I do is I spend time outside a lot more actually than I did prior to the pandemic. So initially when the pandemic first happened, I was at home 100% of the time working from home. And I started to notice that there would be 2-3 days in a row where I didn't step foot outside because I'm sitting in front of a computer all day long, versus when I was in the office, I at least had to get out of the car, walk to my office, walk around campus, things of that nature. So, spending time outside. Since the pandemic started, I actually bought a hammock that I use outside. And so sometimes I will go outside, listen to music, read a book, or just whatever it is that I feel like doing in that moment. For me as well, I've also increased walking, which, number one, helps me to spend more time outside. And it also, just gives me an ability to get away from the computer or get away from the TV and work on my physical activity as well. So those are 3 things that I have increased even more so since the pandemic.
Thank you for sharing those. Those are awesome. Does anyone else like to share?
For me, I would say, being self-aware of when I am feeling stressed from everything going on, as far as like, being entrepreneur, a mom, making sure all my kids are doing what they're supposed to do, and stuff like that. So when I have to be aware, like when I'm feeling that stress, because I want to make sure that I address it right on, so it doesn't blow over. So when I feel the extra stress, I will just make sure that I either do less of something so then I can be back on balance. I definitely spend more time outside. And then I also try to focus on things that I have been putting on my to-do list but never get a chance to. Now that I do, I spin it for something that this is a positive. I have time now that I'm not in traffic, going places, traveling to different places. I'm at home, so I can work on, the house, make it into a place where I feel comfortable and recharge, exercise more, definitely exercise more. I'm baking bread. That's a new thing I'm doing. Cooking a little bit better now, watching a lot of YouTube tutorial, the things that I've always wanted to do but just don't have time. So keeping a good mantra. I always say, you don't have to be perfect. You know, take it a day at a time. It's going to be okay. So just keep on reminding yourself and just give yourself grace, you know, because if you give everybody else grace, you should give yourself grace. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I would agree with being
Okay.
outside does wonders. Reading anything that I can do just from being like at a screen for large periods of time, anything that I can do to step away. So like if I'm out walking, I make sure that I take my phone for safety reasons, but I make sure that I'm not like looking at my phone. So just taking a break, which I tell students all the time to do. So I'm like, I gotta tell myself too. So just taking a break from being at a screen. So my reading has increased so much since this has happened. But being outside, reading have been like the two biggest things.
Yes, I would say relatively the same thing. You have to create time for yourself. Um, Even if you're working a 9 to 5 job, you have to try your hardest to stop at 5 o'clock or have a time that you're going to stop and transition into your time. Um, Mentally, you need to do that, you know, whether it's reading a book or spending more time outside or walking, or you may even need to just try some new things, like maybe a new hobby that's maybe far away from being a helping professional. That sometimes work. I know folks who work in our field, but then after work on the weekends, they may do mechanical type work. They may repair lawnmowers, or you know, just take your mind away from your daily duties and just transition into something else.
Those are all wonderful. I mean, phenomenal words of wisdom and pieces of advice. So I definitely have written quite a few down that I plan to use that I have not been using. But hopefully, for those of you all that are here, those are things that you're implementing in your world as well. Again, we're looking at world mental health. Looking at when you look at world mental health is just so important. So we definitely want to make sure we're taking that opportunity to do those things. Now, with that, we will conclude the questions from the audience, and we definitely appreciate all of the amazing responses that you all have given us. But we would be remiss if we weren't doing this presentation and acknowledging the programs of study that are at Wake Tech that are specifically aligned with human services. So for those of you who are looking at pursuing or you're thinking about the world of human services as far as your career, one thing that we want to share with you, or several things, is that at Wake Tech, we offer an Associate's in Applied Science and Human Services Technology. And under that umbrella, we have concentrations in mental health, substance abuse, and gerontology. We also offer professional certifications for those with a bachelor's degree and above. And in those areas, you can get professional certifications in mental health, substance abuse intervention, substance abuse counseling, and gerontology as well. And for those of you who are thinking about pursuing a bachelor's degree, of course, Wake Tech offers our university pathway, our university transfer track of Associates in Arts, where you can transfer to that university and pursue a major in psychology, social work, anything under that umbrella that aligns with human services.
If you need help determining which mental wellness career is best for you, please meet with us in Career and Employment Resources. Again, you can schedule a link online at bit.ly/book capital CER. I would like to give a huge thank you for each of our panelists today. We appreciate the time you have given to speak to our students about mental wellness careers. I would also like to thank our students for joining us today. We hope that you gained some nuggets of information to use on your career journey, and know that Career and Employment Resources is here to assist you along the way. Thank you again, all of our participants, our panelists for joining us today and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.